We are going to follow the following procedures. Team B, which is University of Rwanda, is going to plead against Team E, which is UNLAK. They're staying in this room.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Judge Charity Wiwabara, and I will be the presiding judge for this hearing. With me is Judge Ndahayo Karist on my right, and Judge Nyirugo Jamari on my left. Today, the 22nd of October, 2019, we have a case of prosecutor versus Lieutenant Colonel Armitage before the International Criminal Court in Kigali, who is accused of crimes against humanity and war crimes that were committed between the dates of 31st December 2016 and the 22nd October 2017. The court wishes to submit that all parties are represented in this case, and I take this moment to welcome the prosecution to introduce themselves.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. My name is Kwizera Geoffrey. I'm with my co-counsel, Mutes Patricia, and co-counsel, Wapaska Isaac. Thank you.
The court calls on the defense to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Honorable Court. Thank you, judges. Thank you, Your Honors. I'm Bizman Elike. I'm the first speaker. We are the defense defending our client, the Lieutenant Armitage. I'm with my second speaker, Brighton, and the third one, Alice. Thank you.
Welcome. It's now time for the prosecution to present their case to this court. I remind that each party equally has 15 minutes for advancing factual issues and legal matters arising out of this case, and after which we shall give 5 minutes to each party for rebuttal. That is both the prosecution and the defense. The prosecution may proceed to submit its case.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. As I said, I'm Kwizera Geoffrey. I'll be addressing the preliminary part of the case. My co-counsel Patricia will be addressing the war crimes against humanity, and Isaac will address the war crimes and the command responsibility. Your Honor, may it please the court that I begin with the background of the case. Thank you so much. The crimes committed by Lieutenant Colonel Armitage were committed in Bolan, the province located in northeast of Ottawa. In this province, Your Honor, has been a lot of insecurities. It began as protests. As time went on, there was an armed group under the leadership of a man identified as Batman, and this group was organized, so it changed the nature of the situation in Bolan, making it an armed conflict. Your Honor, the crimes against humanity were committed before the situation changed into an armed conflict, and the war crimes were committed when the situation has changed into an armed conflict. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I proceed with the admissibility of the case to this honorable court? Thank you so much, Your Honor. The prosecution, submit to this honorable court that it has jurisdiction over the subject matter of the case. Your Honor, the state of Ottawa signed and ratified the ICC statute, hence giving this court the jurisdiction Lasonai Lochi. Your Honor, the accused, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage, is a citizen of Ottawa that ratified this statute, and so giving the court the jurisdiction Lasonai Personai. Your Honor, the crimes against humanity and war crimes fall under the list of Article 5 of the statute, the Rome Statute for ICC, that qualifies as the most serious crimes. Your Honor, hence this court has jurisdiction rationale materia. Your Honor, the alleged crimes were committed in 2016 and 2017, and by this time, the Rome Statute was in force, hence giving this honorable court the jurisdiction rationale temporis. Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I proceed to the next issue, and that is the principle of complementarity. Your Honor, as provided by the preamble of the ICC in its the ICC statute in its paragraph 10, which states that the ICC established under this statute shall be complementary to the national criminal jurisdiction. Your Honor, this also is provided in Article 7, from point A to C, which provides the inadmissibility of the case in the ICC where the national jurisdiction have started investigations or prosecution. Your Honor, 2 years have elapsed in Atava without the national jurisdiction of Atava initiating any step as of investigation or prosecution for the crimes committed by Lieutenant Colonel Armitage.
Counsel, if you may explain to us, under the principle of complementarity principle, or complementary principle, the ICC jurisdiction and the national jurisdiction, which one prevails over the other?
The national jurisdiction prevails, but in this case, there was no any step taken by the national jurisdiction, and hence this court has jurisdiction over the present case. Your Honor, may I proceed to the furthermore provisions? We invoke the prosecutor versus Katanga in its paragraph 10, where the pretrial chamber rendered that the existence of national proceedings is a sole reason that can bar a case from the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. Your Honor, this obstacle is not available in the present case. There were nothing like any investigation or prosecution for the crimes committed by Lieutenant Colonel Armitage. Your Honor, may I proceed?
Before you proceed, what was the cause? Do you think there was unwillingness or inability? You have to explain to the court.
Your Honor, we cannot call it inability because inability is examined only when they at least have initiated any cause. But in this case, we submit that there was an unwillingness, and this is shown by having taken no single step in the period of 2 years, and yet the crimes were committed, the victims suffered, and all this time has elapsed without any step of investigation. This time, may I proceed on the next issue?
Go ahead.
Thank you so much. Your Honor, the present case lacks, the present case is of sufficient gravity to justify further action in this honorable court. Your Honor, we invoke Article 17D of the Rome Statute for ICC, which establishes a criterion for the case to be admitted into this honorable court to have a sufficient gravity threshold. Your Honor, we would like to put to the attention of this honorable court the factors laid down in Prosecutor versus Lumumba, and these elements were used to examine the gravity threshold of a case.
May you repeat that case law that you're referring to?
Prosecutor versus Lumumba.
Which
Lubanga.
All right.
Lubanga, sorry.
May go ahead.
Thank you so much. The elements, number one was the conduct, if the conduct was committed in a systematic manner, whether the accused was in a category of senior leaders, and whether the accused was suspected for their action or omission. Your Honor, in the present case meets all these requirements. For example, the crimes were committed in a systematic attack against civilian population, and it was, the accused today was a senior commander of 120 ADF troops, and a smaller anti-terrorism police department unit. And he is also suspected for his omission not to take any reasonable measure to stop the crimes from being committed, or not any reasonable measure to replace the crimes that committed as of submitting the matter to the competent authority for trial. And Your Honor, by establishing the sufficient gravity of the case, we also invoke the prosecutor versus Abu Idris Gada.
Counsel,
Thank you.
if you may enlighten us more about what you think of or what does the law provide on key elements of crimes against humanity. What is the distinction between widespread and systematic?
Your Honor, if my co-counsels will proceed by that to enlighten more, but what I would like to comment by now is that the systematic manner of the crime is when there were organized attacks against the civilian population, and being part of the widespread, it means it was among the many the wide form of action, but among which they are committed, the crimes committed. And so may you allow me to proceed and finalize on this issue.
You can proceed.
Thank you. Your Honor, lastly but not the least, we also would like to bring to this honorable court, to attention of this honorable court, that in pretrial chamber 1, in prosecutor versus Abu Idris Gada, due consideration was given to the social alarm that the crimes have to the international community. As per paragraph 10 of the facts of the case, Your Honor, this case attracted the attention of the United Security Council, which expressed its concern on the violation of rights, especially the rights to life, the rights to family life, and basically those are the rights they commented on. So having attracted the attention of the United Nations Security Council and all the above described facts, Your Honor, we submit to this honorable court that this case has sufficient gravity to justify further action in this honorable court, and therefore it should be admissible. Your Honor, may I rest my case and invite my co-counsel to proceed.
You have 7 minutes remaining.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Now, Your Honor, if it pleases the court, may I continue with the crimes against humanity that were committed in the state?
Go on.
Thank you very much. Your Honor, Article 7.1 defines crimes against humanity as acts when committed as part of a widespread or systematic attack directed against any civilian population with the knowledge of the attack. Now, Your Honor, they were attacked. Humanitarian law. A civilian population will be one that comprises of people who are not part of an armed force or any sort of armed force or any other legitimate combatants. The 350 people who were trapped by the blockage that was put in place by the lieutenant were all civilians. They were not part of any armed conflict, Your Honor. They were simply civilians. Your Honor, in the Bemba case, the pretrial chamber stated that the requirement of directed against means that the civilian population must be the primary object, Your Honor, and not simply incidental victims. Now, Your Honor, we see
Counsel,
Lieutenant...
what is the case once again?
The Bemba case.
The Bemba case?
Yes.
Proceed.
Your Honor, we see the lieutenant ordering his troops and other ADF soldiers to specifically put a blockage around Namda. These people were civilians. He well knew they were civilians, and he directed this blockage.
In the facts, do we have a clear statement from the Mr. Armitage that says that the civilian population must be blocked?
Under the facts, they say that he ordered there to be a blockage around Namda. But Namda is a civilian village that is known, Your Honor. So he directed this attack, he directed this blockage on the civilians. Your Honor, if the court pleases, I would love to commence and address the individual crimes against humanity that were committed. Now, Your Honor, the crime of persecution was committed. The actus reus of persecution, Your Honor, in accordance to Article 7, is met when the perpetrator conducts severe deprivation of fundamental rights contrary to international law. Now, Your Honor, through the acts under the leadership of Lieutenant Colonel, we see, Armitage rather, we see severe deprivation of rights. For example, Your Honor, people were beaten, they were deprived of their right to physical integrity. People's houses were searched without warrants. Your Honor, they were deprived of their right to privacy. Your Honor, they were refused to move. Actually, nothing was allowed to enter or leave the village of Namda while there was a blockade. Your Honor, they were deprived of the right to liberty that is provided for by Article 9 of the ICCPR. Now, Your Honor, on top of that, there was persecution because under persecution, under persecution, there's supposed to be some sort of, some form of discrimination. And Your Honor, in accordance to the Duskota-Dick case, it was held that what is necessary is some form of discrimination that is intended to be an infringement of an individual's fundamental right. Now, Your Honor,
Counsel, you're reminded that you have 2 minutes remaining.
Your Honor, I would love to proceed to the crime of rape. Now, Your Honor, very many women were raped, and the facts of the case said that there are severe accusations of rape, Your Honor. Now, Your Honor, there also was the crime of torture, Your Honor, as well as the crime of forced transfer of population. Your Honor, due to time, may I call on my co-counsel to...
Mr. President, Your Honors, I'm Isaac, and I will address the third charge of war crimes. Your Honor, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage is liable for war crimes. Under Rule 156, which provides serious violations of international humanitarian law, constitutes a war crime. Your Honor, a war crime happens when in an armed conflict. And for our case, the nature of an armed conflict is that one of a non-international armed character. This is according to the trial chamber in the Lubanga case. Armed conflicts not of international character, conflicts that take place in a territory of a state, when a protracted conflict between the government and organized armed groups. Your Honor, the organized armed group was the Bora resistance, under Batman, and then the government authorities were the ADF soldiers. Your Honor, to justify this, we based on the criteria to see whether there was an armed group, whether it was organized. First of all, there was...
Counsel, please, can you explain well how what happened in the Atava state was part of an armed conflict?
Your Honor, what happened in Atava...
Was there an armed conflict?
There was an armed conflict, Your Honor, as I'm going to show you, Your Honor. First of all, basing on the evidence of an armed violence between the government authorities and organized armed groups between in the territory of Bora province. Your Honor, we see an armed violence attacks from the Bora resistance, such as the destruction of the shrines and the destruction of part of the capital in the Atava. These attacks were actually responded to by the ADF soldiers by destroying a building and firing of rockets. That was a confrontation between the... Yes,
what are the essential elements put forward by the IHL on the key elements that must be proven to prove that there was a non-armed conflict? And give us provision thereof.
Your Honor, the provisions, the criteria are the intensity of the armed conflict and the level of organization. So, yes, the level of the organization of an armed conflict.
You may proceed with what you...
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I go to the charges? Lieutenant Colonel Armitage is liable for a crime of intentional directing attacks against the civilian population. Your Honor, according to rule number 1, regarding the principle of distinction, directing attacks against civilian population is prohibited under customary international law, Your Honor. And basing on this, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage never distinguished between the civilians from the military objective. In this case, he attacked directed civilians, and in that case, several people died, such as 15 people died in the village of Namda. Around also, Your
You
Honor,
can be winding up. It's less than 1 minute remaining.
Your Honor, I beg for 1 minute to talk about the responsibility under Article 28, superior responsibility. Your Honor, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage is also held liable for superior responsibility for having not controlled his subordinates. Under the Bemba case, the ICC judgment, there are 6 conditions. The accused must have been either a military commander, he was a military commander, and he had effective control and authority to stop or to punish or to repress. He also he ought to know that his forces were about to commit the crimes. He never took necessary or reasonable measures to repress the commission of the crimes, and therefore he is liable for all the actions committed by his subordinates without justifying any principle of proportionality, distinction against all the actions done by his troops. Thank you, Your Honor. Our prayers are that the case is admissible before this court, and that all charges that Lieutenant Colonel Armitage is liable for all the charges. Thank you.
It's now time for the defense.
As I said, I'm with Manelike. I am a counsel for our client, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage. Honorable judges, I start by arguing that this court has jurisdiction based to adjudicate this case based on Article 5 of the Rome Statute, paragraph B, subsection C. Court has jurisdiction to adjudicate the case for the crimes that are limited to the most serious crimes that concern to international community. Such crimes are crimes against humanity and war crimes. Honorable judges, we say this also basing on the jurisdiction of temporaries. These crimes, this armed conflict happened in Antava country, crimes committed around 2016, while this statute has been established in 1999. Honorable judges, according to the principle of international law, saying non-retroactivity of the law is applicable for the present case and the future case except when there are exceptions. By this principle, I am explaining the court has jurisdiction according to this jurisdiction of temporaries. Honorable judges, we as defense for our client, Colonel Armitage, we are addressing these issues. Prosecution are accusing our client, saying that these crimes should be acquitted from our client. Honorable judges, as in the case we have seen, as the case is, honorable judges, security in Antava was destabilized. That's why, as the government, we would have to protect the rights and the security of the people. Honorable judges, the county they are accusing our client, as prosecution have been saying, it is persecution,
Counsel,
rape. Sorry.
So you confirmed the fact that there was an armed conflict.
Yes, it was the armed conflict.
Proceed.
Yes. Honorable judges, about the crime of
You have
rape,
to answer which kind of armed conflict.
it was international armed conflict. That was international armed conflict.
And what did the prosecution submit?
Sorry.
How did the prosecution qualify the armed conflict?
Honorable judges, prosecution did not clarify what the conflict happened in Antava. They said armed conflict only.
They said non-international armed conflict, and the defense is saying it was an internationalized conflict, right?
Yes.
Okay, the court will deliberate on that.
Thank you.
You can continue.
Honorable judges, about the crime of rape. Before proceeding, honorable judges, they have said that IDF army under the command of Al-Mutaj have ordered the people and they killed the 15 people. Honorable judges, it is not correct. 15 people were moved to near Patel, near the border of Boleri. They didn't die. They have said that 15 people were died, but they didn't die. They are the ones who moved to near the border of Boleri.
Council,
Thank you.
what does the IHL provide on displacement of people? And did you put in the measures to accomplish that?
Honorable judges, according to the rule saying about displacement, internal displacement of the people, it says that when it is for the security of the population, they are allowed to be moved so that to ensure their safety. This is showed by the order given to the ADF by Colonel Al-Mutaj, telling the people to move as well as the situation is calmed down, they will come back soon. That shows
What are the measures that should be put in place during that displacement?
If it may please the court, may repeat.
What are the measures that should be put in place with regards to the displaced people?
Honorable judges, if it may please the court, my co-counsel will come and complete with it.
Okay.
Honorable judges, at the beginning, first speaker of the prosecution have said the crime against humanity of rape, and he started saying the crimes committed were systematic and widespread. According to Article 3 of the Rome Statute, paragraph G, said that this implies deliberate act and plan, that this element, act and plan, and that is the element was not established because of these crimes they have been saying should not be established because there are no proofs showing that there has been a meeting for planning that committing those crimes. Honorable judges, Lieutenant Colonel Al-Mutaj, our client, did not have plan, even nature of organization for committing those crimes against the people of Bola. Honorable judges, about rape, if were rape committed by the army of Al-Mutaj, what are the plan showing that they planned to go and commit the crime of rape? That one should not be considered, honorable judges. I may call upon my...
Counsel, if I may ask, you said there are two elements, that's widespread and systematic. So in case of one element of those and the absence of the other, does not qualify it as crimes against humanity?
Honorable judges, it is true. When one element is lack or is absent, those crimes will not be considered as a crime against humanity.
So you have just explained on the organizational nature in terms of systematic attack, but what about the advancement of the prosecution on the widespread, that there were many civilians in the different parts? What do you have to say as the defense?
Honorable judges, they didn't show how many women were raped. How can we argue that they were raped while they are not showing? At least when they say they have raped 300 people, that would be largest score of the victim. That's why we are saying that these crimes should be acquitted from our client. Let me call my co-counsel, come and continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President of this court, honorable judges.
You have 8 minutes to wind up, so you have to manage your time well.
Okay, thank you. According to the ICTY ruled that the perpetrator of the crime of attack on civilian must undertake the attack willing full. The attack was not aiming at directing an attack against civilian, as the prosecution has submitted that the attack was just for directing the civilian population, but the object of attack was not a civilian population as such, nor individual civilian not taking part in the hostility. The intended result was to attack the buildings that were found to support the terrorists and causing the death and injuries to non-combatants around the building. Sometimes terrorists were known to hide among population that conducted training, especially in suburbs area. They were using the buildings in the residential community for hostile activities. Directing an attack would have to be the best measures to secure the troop of Lieutenant Colonel Armitage. There is distinction between the principal targeted of the attack, which was the civilian population, against military objective, which with the awareness they will or may result in the incidental loss of life or injury to civilians.
Counsel, what is the test for civilian objects and military objectives? The elements of the test.
Thank you, Your Honors. The military object, the test is that it was used as military reason. The civilian is the property which is not taking part on the hostility or which is not supporting the armies or the hostile. If it pleases the court, I may continue.
That is one test of use. What are the other two tests, very important tests that must be put in place, or you must first realize and then before you make an attack?
First of all, you must consider that the area where you are going or you are planning to launch an attack. If there is a suburb, as this prosecution submit that, it was in the village. If it is the village where they live as civilians, you cannot direct an attack. If the president,
Go ahead.
okay. As proceeding, I may call upon my co-counsel to proceed.
Thank you, Honor. I'm Counsel Ingabire Alice, and I'm going to proceed with what the prosecution has been charging our client about the issue of deportation. According to the ICRC report on the international displaced person and international humanitarian law on the 20th March 2018, it states that deportation should be allowed when it was necessary for imperative military reason and protection of civilians themselves. According to the paragraph 1 of the case, on 6 July 2016, the act of terrorism while making the situation worse, where the police and the army were attacked by the explosive device. That's why in Namdan village, the military decided to displace the people for the reason of protecting them, because the area they were in was no security. So the displacement was legal for the protection of the citizen. Continuing with the crime of they prosecuted the crime of intention of directing an attack on civilian population, but before saying
3
that,
minutes remaining.
before the prosecution, when the prosecution said this, our client didn't intentionally direct an attack on the civilian, because they directed an attack on the building where they were believed that those buildings were used as booby trap, where those terrorists are using those for the military operation, training the other terrorists. So that's why they attacked that building, not attacking the civilian building.
But according to the facts of the case, we see some victims, some civilians that were victims. So what do you have to say on that?
The civilians that were victims, because when they were displacing those civilians, they didn't cooperate with the military. That's why those victims was
Civilians are obliged to cooperate with the military.
Yeah, for the reason of their security.
In case they don't cooperate, they lose their rights or they lose their protection status.
No, that's not what we are talking about. We are talking that it happens, but there was also a principle of proportionality. The military tried to displace the citizen, but because the citizen were not understanding where the displacement it occupied, but our client didn't have an intention of committing that all of the laws of the victim, of the life of the victims. That was not an intention So if please the court may continue with the players. As the defense, we play that Lieutenant Colonel Armitage is not individually responsible with the crime against humanity under Article 7, Paragraph 1, and Article 28 of Rome Statute, indicating the commander responsibility, as it has been shown that there is no intention of committing those acts or intention of loss of life to the victim. The attack was against the terrorist, not the citizen. Thank you.
I did not get from the defense your counter argument or on the accusation from the prosecution on superior responsibility.
If it may please the court, may repeat the question.
You did not say anything on the superior responsibility that was advanced by the prosecution.
And also on the jurisdiction of the court.
Honorable judges, about superior responsibilities, prosecution have been saying it is true that when the orders is given to the commander when orders are given to the subordinate, when those orders are lawful, they have to be followed by the subordinates. When they are unlawful, they do not have to obey them. But according to what they have saying about the crimes they are charging as committed by subordinates, honorable judges, according to the case of Milomir Stakik, they have said that when subordinates have committed the crimes, the court analyze, when subordinates committed the crimes by saying that it was an order, while it was lawful, they committed contrary to what they have been ordered. Those crimes should not be accused to the commander or superior who has given the lawful order to the subordinate. About jurisdiction.
Yes, the jurisdiction question that was asked by Judge Nyirurugo. May respond to it in less than a minute.
Your Honor, however, they never justified how internationalized it became, how it came to be an internationalized armed conflict. Your Honor, looking at the facts of the case, we see the conflict happened in the state of Atava, especially in Boran province. We never see any involvement of any foreign state in the conflict, so as to justify maybe that a conflict became internationalized. Even if the defense may say that there was the presence of a nearby state, which is Borelia. Borelia never in any way showed any contribution to this conflict, Your Honor, from the facts of the case. Your Honor, the statement that came from Borelia was of unwavering support. However, we don't see practically in any way whether how that support took place. Therefore, saying that the conflict was internationalized, we don't see in reference to the Nicaragua case, we don't see like whether the military was depending, the armed group was depending on any foreign state. Therefore, it is up to the court to decide on that.
So, Counsel, you've said what you don't see. So what do you see? You need to tell them. The prosecution, yeah.
The prosecution submits that the conflict, we earlier submitted the conflict was a non-international armed conflict, showing you that the conflict was between the government authorities and the rebel movement. We just filed the criteria for the unorganized armed group, that it had a certain level of, the group had a command, it had the equipment, it had occupied, there was a confrontation between the government and the ADF, especially on the 22nd of October 2017, and also in the Namda village. The bombings in the capital of Atava, they are from the attacks from the rebel group. To that extent, it shows that the group was organized and had a command structure under the leadership of Batman.
You may continue.
Also concerning the directing attacks against civilians, Your Honor, the defense tries to defend that it was not target against civilians. But Your Honor, looking at the situation on the 22nd of October 2017, you see the troops fired rockets against a civilian building, killing 15 civilians, 10 families fleeing. The principle of proportionality was not in any way actually respected here, according to the Rule 14 of the Customary International Humanitarian Law, saying that launching an attack which may be expected to cause incidental loss of civilian life, injury to civilians, damage to civilian objects, or a combination of thereof, which would be excessive.
How do you link that to the collateral damage principle?
Your Honor, connecting to the collateral damage, this cannot be justified as collateral damage, since the military advantage was so less compared to the life of the citizens. Because 10 people are looking for 2 terrorists was not enough to justify the death of 15 people, Your Honor. Therefore, distinction was not respected. They were
so you mean the soldiers were supposed to leave those rebels stay in the society, or what other means would you have used?
Your Honor, as a military commander, he is obliged to respect the international humanitarian laws, putting into consideration of the civilians, their rights, and that they are entitled to international humanitarian law, and also to distinguish between military objectives and civilians. In this case, we don't see any facts of the case where they were sure that the building contained even those 2 terrorists. It was just a speculation which could be a misfiring by the ADF. We don't see that the place was already a territory of terrorists. But it is within that village, following all the events, it is the villages of Namda, of the Boran province that have been a center of attack. Therefore, that cannot justify it was a military necessity.
So buildings which are being used, let's say there are civilian objects which are protected under the IHL.
Yes.
But what happens when those protected areas or protected objects are placed under the use by the military for military operations?
Your Honor, if it appears under reasonable ground that those places had been occupied by military and they became military objectives, the commander would have taken necessary measures, precautions, to see that he would minimize that amount of the loss of lives of people, so that the infringement on their rights and the destruction of their projects would be minimal, not to this extent which has become so excessive and cannot be justified under international humanitarian law.
Continue with your rebuttal.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me give concerning the superior responsibility, Your Honor, the defense still does not show us how their client cannot be liable for such crimes. Because he was a commander, Your Honor, according to the Naganda case, but Naganda case was liable for superior responsibility because he was a commander, he led the UPC, and this time this commander, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage, is leading the ADF. And Your Honor also, he never took any measures to repress, to stop, or to punish. Up to now, he has not done anything. Your Honor also, for the interest of the time, let me give to make.
Council, before you submit,
Yes.
we have the principle of effective control, and how do you relate to effective control with someone who's not on the ground or on the field of battle?
Your Honor, concerning the issue of effective control, for someone who is not on the ground, but there is also another criteria that he should have known, or he ought to know the circumstances concerning his troops. Regarding the position of Lieutenant Colonel Armitage, giving orders and taking, he has also disciplinary measures for the, as such of a certain governmental authority, army, they have orders and they have structures of how to, and the communication of how to follow the events that were happening. Therefore, if he did not actually, even if he would allege that he was not on the ground, still he cannot justify that he's not liable, since even after that, he never tried to know what happened, he never tried to punish, and he never tried to prevent. Thank you.
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Now, Your Honor, the defense submitted that the presence of, the absence of systematic or widespread in crimes against and widespread, the absence of one means they are not crimes against humanity. However, Your Honor, the article says widespread or systematic. Now, I already showed how there was a widespread nature of the attack, but Your Honor, if the court pleases, I would love to show how the attacks were also systematic. Your Honor, they were systematic they were organized, Your Honor. We see the attacks moving from one village to another. Your Honor, the lieutenant and his troops start on 31st December 2016 in Namda. Then they continue to the village of Pate, Your Honor. So we see that there was a plan, there was organization. Now, Your Honor, the defense also submitted that the attack was...
Sorry, was it a prerequisite, or is it always a prerequisite that in crimes against humanity there has to be an armed conflict?
No, Your Honor. They can also happen during peace times. Now, Your Honor, the defense also submitted that the attack was not against civilians. Your Honor, however, I'd love to bring it to the attention of the court that it is only civilian houses that were searched in the village of Namda. It was only civilian men that were beaten. It was only with the Namda civilian women that were raped. Your Honor, it was only civilians who were forced out of their homes in the village of Pate. Your Honor, so the attack was actually directed against civilians. Now, Your Honor, on that note of forced transfer of population, the defense also submitted that the defense quoted facts of the case that there was security in the village of Namda. However, Your Honor, the people that were forced to move, the people that were told to move, were people from the village of Pate, where there was security. Now, Your Honor, on the note of forced transfer of population...
We already have everything in the submissions you made, so you can be winding up.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, if you might allow me, in just 1 minute, in the Rodovan and Karadzic case, the court quoted that force, the term force may include physical force as well as the threat of coercion, such as that is caused by fear. Now, ADF people, the ADF soldiers told simple civilians that there was insecurity. That causes fear. If a soldier tells a civilian that there's insecurity in this place and you need to move, it causes fear.
Okay. Time is up.
Just wanted to bring 2 points on to the attention of this honorable court, that I would like to embark on the point that the defense complies with the jurisdiction of this honorable court to the present case. I would like this honorable court to note that, and they also comply to the superior responsibility of Lieutenant Colonel Armitage. Your Honor, I would just wanted to emphasize that. Thank you so much.
It's now time for the defense team. You have 5 minutes to do your rebuttal.
Thank you, honorable judges. Let me back about superior responsibility. Honorable judges, command responsibilities, I have said that when order is given, when order is given to subordinate, it is lawful. It has to be respected. When the order is unlawful, it has not to be respected. But according to this case, sometimes commanders give a lawful order to the subordinates, but they do not comply what they have been told to do. That's why, basing on the Nuremberg Military Tribunal under the control of Council Law Number 10, the trial chamber agrees that an order does not need to be given by the superior directly to the persons who performs the actus reus of the offense. Furthermore, what's important is the commander's mens rea, not that of subordinate executing the order. Therefore, it is irrelevant whether the illegality of an order was apparent on its face, saying that if commander or order given to the subordinate has an intention which is lawful, that's why that should be looked, that should be checked. The intention commanders, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage has given to ADF Army in its face, honorable judges, it does not contain an lawful order. Also,
Counsel.
Yes.
So you mean a commander who did not directly order for a commission of a crime or commission of war crimes, or who did not learn of the incidents, is not liable under the superior responsibility?
Honorable judges, I answer in two ways. The first one,
Before you answer
it
in
might
ways,
be.
Counsel,
Yes.
combine it with the fact the prosecution also advanced on the omissions by Lieutenant Colonel Armitage.
Honorable judges, they have said Lieutenant Colonel Armitage, he didn't do what he was supposed to do to punish those who committed the crimes. As they have said, the country was not unable to, the national was not unable to proceed to punish those ones. That's why they submitted the case to International Criminal Court. Honorable judges, those who committed those crimes, also in military procedures, they would have to be punished. Basing on Batekas, the contemporary law on superior responsibilities, also an order has to constitute these three elements for being unlawful. The first one, an order has to be, there might be instigation. When the commitment of the crimes was in complement of the instigation, that shows that the command given was intentionally aimed to commit the offense. The command responsibility should be posed on the superior to the subordinate. And also abetting and aiding. What the prosecution have been saying, honorable judges, according to the case, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage showed what was necessary for protecting civilian population. What they did, they told all the people to move where was the security, where they were in security, to move where there was security in the country. Let me call my co-counsel and continue.
Thank you, honorable judges. I would like to start on the fact that the prosecution was saying that the attack of that building was illegal. Let me start on the fact. On 6 July 2016, ADF soldiers accompanied by the police are attacked while patrolling on the foot in the capital of Boran province. The attack began with an improvised explosive device which killed 4 soldiers. Immediately after, several masked men shouting freedom for Bora opened fire from the near roofed, injuring another 2 soldiers. The masked men then fled into the surrounding suburb. According to the Rule 18, customary of international humanitarian law, the prohibition of using boob trap is prohibited. It means that that building that was destroyed by the ADF was the boob trap that attack these soldiers and police in this patrolling in the province of Bolan. Let me proceeding on the Prime Minister Lamington signed a revised anti-terrorism proclamation for the purpose of preventing, countering violence extremists against the people of Atava. Among other things, the proclamation grants special power to the Atava Defense Force.
Council, so enlighten us whether it is acceptable if one of the parties to the conflict does not respect IHL principles, so it entails the other party also not to respect. If we see in the facts, we see the excuse, it was just an excuse that was given, that they thought that these buildings were boob-trapped. You understand? So we want to know if there were explosives before, then it means all the civilian objects are relieved of the protection, or they are no longer protected. Just enlighten us on that.
Thank you, Your Honor. The building that was destroyed was on that cities where that armies and police were attacked. And according to customary international law, Article 18, the use of this boob trap was prohibited because if the army thinks that the building was used as the boob traps to attack, that attack is legal. As proceeding, if the President of the Court may proceed.
First, does it relate with the rule of precaution?
Yes. When the rule of precaution, it stated that you must take precaution after launching an attack. But if you think this building was a boob trap as this...
Excuse me, after or before?
Before.
Okay. You can proceed.
As the prosecution was submitted that on count one that Armitage, our client Lieutenant Colonel Armitage has the law on the beaten men in the village, I would like to give the fact that the Prime Minister Lamington was signed a revised anti-terrorist proclamation for the purpose of preventing and countering violence extremists against the people of Atava. Among other things, the proclamation grants special powers of Atava Defense Force and the police to conduct search and arrest operation in the city, town, and the village of Bolan.
1 minute remaining.
And on that fact, Lieutenant Colonel Armitage was giving the same order as has given, was executing the order that has given by Minister Lamington. Thank you, Honor.
Thank you, Honor. Did the prosecution say that it is scary when the military tell you to move from one place to another place? But I think the most scary thing is remaining the place which is insecure. That's why the ADF and the police continue to search. After they search, in the village of Patel, they told the civilian to leave for their own safety, and they told them to return as soon as the situation has improved. They didn't tell them, go only. They told them, go, you will come back when the situation is calm. Thank you.
After thoroughly hearing the presentation of the submissions of the prosecution, in the case of prosecutor versus Lieutenant Colonel Armitage, and the counter submissions of the defense, the International Criminal Court seated in Kigali hereby closes the hearing and informs the parties here represented that pronouncement of the judgment will be on the 15th November 2019. The court closes.